Hi, welcome back to Frank Racz's fishing channel here. We're at, I think, day 4 with Rod Week, and it wouldn't be Rod Week in the Midwest without talking about St. Croix, or for the rest of the country, for that matter. There's a few points I want to hit on with St. Croix, kind of like bouncing off what I did with Fenwick. I'll talk a little bit about the history of St. Croix Rod Company. They were actually probably the last manufacturer to go with graphite. They hung on to fiberglass for years, and they've had about 3 or 4 different owners, and where they're at now is really a full-blown rod company. They used to have a good reputation for musky rods, walleye type rods, smallmouth rods. Largemouth fishermen really haven't been tuned into them up until, I don't know, probably about the past 10 years. They've done some marketing and done a lot of bass rods, Mojo bass and stuff like that. But I'm going to talk about 2 pretty fundamental rods right here. The first one is, and I've mentioned this before, I believe, in the craw worming. If you want to see the spinning version of this, you can do the craw worming video. But this is a Triumph St. Croix. It's an older model. Right there you can see it's got the older logo, and as I mentioned before with the spinning rods, they tend to be a little bit more parabolic in bending into almost the little back third of the rod than the Premiers. And of course, just as I reiterated before, SC2 graphite, same graphite content, probably not the same blank, definitely not the same blank in this case, and medium 10 to 17 pound, 1/4 to 3/4. So that would be a bread and butter bass rod in any rod locker. I've gone over these components before, but definitely go over them again. They're well worth reiterating. Good cork, nice cork. You can tell I haven't used this rod a tremendous amount. Good cork, not a lot of fill, sanded down well. Again, the totally universal Fuji reel seat. And if you had a medium rod, you'd be using something like this, or medium heavy anywhere in the country. It's pretty much the casting rod, just like the spinning. It's the casting rod that I use to judge all the others in terms of around this price point. I think this rod sells for $99 now. As far as hook setting power, sensitivity, castability, you name it. This is pretty much where I'm at. And I think I have rods that are better, and then some rods that are not quite as good. So I still hang on to this, and maybe I'll run a spinnerbait on it just to keep up. And like I said, I like these full grips in the fall, as I mentioned in the split grip video. I like casting spinnerbaits in the spring or the fall and being able to tuck this in. I think it's a really nice feature. So this is a good rod. If you, like I mentioned for Fenwick, the Eagles, their starter rod for graphite. If you're looking for a St. Croix at this price point for around $100, you most certainly can't go wrong with it. A little scratch there. So I mean, you won't be disappointed. But in terms of, it was a very good rod when I bought it that many years ago, probably 8 years ago or something along those lines, 7 years ago. And again, the guides, these had the Premiers had the Batsons. These just have a standard guide. Probably somebody makes that for them. But I mean, in terms of performance today, great balance on the rod from tip to butt. But in terms of rods today, there's a lot of competition out there. That rod's not made in America, it's made in Mexico. There's a lot of competition for, I guess, an imported rod at that price. There are some split grip lighter rods, better balance, that are better options. Now, what I would tend to recommend if you're going to get a Croix is go with an Avid. And Avid is an American-made rod with the integrated polycurve technology. I sold so many rods, they even gave me one with my name on it. And what the integrated polycurve technology does is it creates a very fast rod, but a very responsive rod. Much more fast and responsive than a Premier. Premier is kind of slow to respond, slow in hook setting power. The Avid's crisp, and it's got a more uniform tip to butt ratio, just a smoother casting rod. Fuji guides, Fuji reel seat, padded hoods, fully loaded, better cork, a little bit kind of a thicker butt cap. But what we want to talk about, the main thing with the Croix is, for American made for $200, it's still a great rod. You know, if you're looking for, gosh, I fished it so much with my Daiwas on there, you could actually see the Daiwa logo on there. I used to fish these a lot back in the day when I was fishing more cover type situations, shallow water, 6 foot. I wouldn't talk anybody out of an Avid. It's still one of the benchmark rods. I use for American made, around that, like I said, that $200 price point. You definitely can't go wrong with one. And they've changed their warranties though, as it's a lifetime, but I think it's like a tiered system. So, and these were one important thing that I learned, were these Fuji Elkanite guides, which are on here, which are thin and lightweight. You get really good casting distance on an Elkanite rod, and extremely good casting accuracy. Probably better than you would, like, let's say the stainless steel guides on like a St. Croix, or a Fenwick Eagle. You can see that you've got a nice smaller guide there, and they increase gradually in size. And also when they have a thin seat there, or on the foot of the guide, I should say, guide foot, and when the rod bends, it's pretty even and consistent throughout. It just makes a crisper, better feeling rod. If you've never casted anything around this and you only buy American, and Avid's a top consideration. So there are other higher end graphite rods. It goes SC2, 3, 4, 5, and I think they've got like a 6. When you get past 3, the SC3, which is on the Avid, SC3 is high modulus. It's not super high modulus. The other rods are super high modulus. They're reinforced. St. Croix rod, a lot of people have fished when they fall into two camps. Greatest rods on earth, like that's their marketing. They're either great or they're not so great, and I tend to be realistic and more or less in between. I mean, there's plenty of situations where for a price point, no matter what you're looking at, in terms of graphite or an American-made rod, the St. Croix could be the perfect rod for you, and that's why I've been selling them for so long. I have a lot of respect for the company. They've tried to make a lot of rods here in the States where the price point can afford it. And that's pretty much about it to sum it up with St. Croix. Most people know about these rods. There's a Mojo Bass, that's an SC2, that's a split grip. I've been fishing Lew's a lot, and I think they make a really good rod. But it's pretty much splitting hairs a lot of times between Lew's, which is my favorite, and comparing Loomis to St. Croix. But like I said, your Triumph, this is a great rod for around the $100 price point, and the durability on them is fantastic, and the components on them are top notch. So I highly recommend St. Croix rods. Almost everyone I know has one in their arsenal, and has one that's a favorite. Even if they're not fishing them like me, I still am really partial to my 6.5 foot medium spinning, which you can see, I believe, like I said, on that crawworm video, and actually see some fish catching action in there as well. Otherwise, that's it. I said it's going to be Rod Week. We're going to finish it up, and next clip is going to be something different. It's going to be on Midwest style jig fishing rods. What is Midwest style jig fishing? There's some information out there on the internet about it. Most people have come across it through the Ned rig. I could talk about my personal history with it. I learned to basically fish bass and cover and learn how to fish structure with shorter rods. Even though I'm using longer rods now, Midwest style jig fishing. I'm actually going to try slider jigging, which involves a shorter rod again, because I have a whole arsenal of these really wonderful lightweight short rods. And short rods are great, even though we're going towards longer rods. Sometimes that shorter rod with that low gear ratio, they're comfortable to fish, is all you're really going to need. So like I said, that wraps up St. Croix, and we'll have one last episode for Rod Week, and then we'll move on to something else. And for the next episode, we're going to do Midwest style jig fishing, because I'm writing a fishing article on it, and I'll show you some really choice rods. A lot of people skimp on a shorter rod for some reason on Midwest style jig fishing, and I could show you what an economical rod versus a higher end rod is really going to specifically do for you. So take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I got a subscriber yesterday, which is awesome. It keeps me doing this stuff. And there's going to be some fishing footage coming up in a few days. I'm going to get some fishing in, some time off work. So take care, everyone. Thanks.